All right, welcome everyone. Looking forward to our discussion today about a very interesting topic, and it's dear to me at least, which is the role of the voice of the customer in our organizations. And how do we measure it? How do we capture it? How do we utilize it? And how do we actually really turn that voice into actionable insights? With that said, most organizations these days claim to be customer-centric. But what does it really mean to your organizations? How do we evaluate that? Susan, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. So for us at Pekin, it means changing to an outside-in thinking from inside out, which is actually a really big shift for my company as we get ready to celebrate 100 years next year. So we are just over a year into our experience transformation, and I'm actually coming at it from 3 different angles. The first is building a design thinking mindset, which is critical to successful technology solutions. So we are closely scrutinizing and reworking some of our agent and customer facing digital solutions to be more user-centric. Second is empathy awareness, and training is also a big initiative for our frontline staff who are engaging with our agents and customers on a daily basis. And then third, I'm really trying to raise awareness that our individual employee experiences have a profound effect on our external customer and agent experience. So I'm really trying to build a culture where we are, truly trying to enable each other to succeed. So those are the 3 veins that we're going and chasing after.
Sounds great. So really you're saying it's about enabling customer experience and user experience through digital, embracing the employee experience and enabling the customer experience and building overall empathy with your customers and your employees.
Yep, and just showing how it's all connected together. It's not just one piece or the other. It's trying to bring all of it together in some succinctness.
Awesome. Ashley, would you like to add anything to this one?
Yeah, so I think, Anton, you used a term, customer-centric, which I think is really interesting because it's a term that we see a lot within our discipline, and many companies sort of have that as their goal. And when we started to look at it, we felt that it's a hard concept to really define and act on. It can be interpreted by some organizations as, the customer's always right, and it can become a reactive situation in which we try to give the customer exactly what they told us. And, it's interesting, Susan mentioned design thinking. We do a lot of that similar type of work. And it's very hard for individuals to articulate what they need. I always like to use the iPhone example because no one was going to tell you exactly that they needed an iPhone, but now we can't live without them. So it's really important, I think, to dive in a little bit deeper there. The other piece around customer centricity is it can be dismissive of employees and business impacts. If you've got a business challenge where you have to adjust your expenses, so you have to reduce call volume, how does that fit in with customer centricity? What if the customer only wants to call you? How do you sort of balance those two? So for us, we as an organization really look at making customer aware decisions. So it means that we have to understand our customers and the impacts of our products and our projects on them as we move the business forward. So we still have to consider, what the customers see and feel. We have to collect and leverage that voice of the customer data. And then we need to respond to trends and customer expectations. And we know those are always shifting and evolving. But then once we have that view, we layer on the business needs and the employee needs, and then we can get to a much more holistic output in terms of the experience that we want to design.
Sounds great. And really what I'm hearing also is say like this notion of, and I hear this all the time, this idea of like, who is really the customer and what does it really mean, right? And you guys, sounds like you thinking more, it's really people and different people in different roles and how are all the people considered during the decision-making process. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it is. We actually say we have 5 different customers when we look across the various individuals that we have touch points with throughout the value stream of what we do. So exactly, it's people. At the end of the day, we're talking about people and humans and what they need and what they desire and trying to solve for that in a way that's meaningful to the business as well.
That's great. Thank you, Ashley. So when it comes to that, and when it comes to capturing this information and working on that, what tools do you guys use? What are are there any specific methodologies employed in capturing that voice of people, voice of customers, voice of employees, if you will, right? And being able to not just capture it, but also contextualize it and share that information. So what do you guys do when it comes to that?
Well, I'll go ahead and go. So at Pekin, we sell through independent agents. And therefore, it's really important for us to understand what it's like to walk in our agent's shoes. So we have a very targeted voice of the agent program where we're utilizing a combination of agent focus groups and surveys to really dig into key journeys that we know have friction points. And then on top of that, we're using a tool called Thematic, which is a feedback analysis platform based on AI. And it helps distill down verbatims to give us a clear line of sight on topics and themes that are emerging through those surveys. And then we can take that as we get those clear line of sights and really make adjustments, use a tool called Validately, which is a user testing tool, and iterate through new UI solutions. So, and then all the time, we're bringing in our other business groups within the company that this is affected and helping collaborate with them to figure out, is this the right solution? Kind of like what we were talking to previously, is it the right solution for our agent? Will that ultimately enable them to do more efficient business with the policyholder? And is it giving a better solution to our internal staff to be able to help support on anything that we might be adjusting or changing?
Okay, so it sounds like you're largely utilizing surveys and interview process as well as user testing to be able to refine your solutions across the board.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you know what to ask? I'm just curious, like what questions, how do you know what information you're looking for? Are you starting with a solution in mind, or are you thinking more broader needs, and where do you begin?
No, we're starting much broader. We went through a technology transformation these last few years, and because of that, we've seen spikes in call volumes internally, and we've really taken a lot of time to talk to our internal staff to understand what they're hearing. And then we start to put more context to those smaller user groups. We don't try to lead in those by any means. We give them more of an open forum and then kind of distill down what they're telling us, because they don't always know what they want. They just know what they don't want. So that's kind of the approach that we take. And then we might construct a survey off of that to try and get a little bit more granular, so that as we're redoing whatever we might need to redo or tweaking it, we have a better line of sight. But yeah, sometimes they don't know what they want. They just know what they do not want or what is not working for them.
Gotcha. Thank you, Susan. Ashley, anything from your perspective you wanted to add to that one?
Yeah, so I mean, similar to Susan, we have our always on survey program that enables us to hear directly from claimants. And then we do have some specified touch points with our employer customers and our broker partners. You know, we do an omnibus satisfaction study that enables us to get some verbatims and some ratings and scores to analyze where we're going. But then we do have a proprietary panel that we set up for more ad hoc topics. So as the business has a particular project they're working on, we actively encourage them to allow us to structure a study. It could be an in-depth interview. It could be more of a survey to try and get some answers and information specific to what they need so we can get more targeted. And then we use, you know, some real-time feedback services. You mentioned Validately, user testing. We have that tool as well that enables us to do both moderated and unmoderated testing. So once we've developed, you know, an early stage concept, it could be a sketch on paper. We put that prototype out there, we get some feedback, and it helps us to iterate and continue to move forward. And then we also do something called Dine and Dish. So this worked out much better before the pandemic, but it enabled us to bring 6 to 8 people together around some food, some drinks, very informal, not a formal focus group, but then we could start to have those more organic conversations to produce some stimuli and have them react to it, tell us what's working, what's not working here. And so that's been really effective for us in helping to drive new experiences forward. But to your earlier question, oftentimes we have some nugget, something that we're reacting to because we've done that early stage design work that Susan mentioned, and that helps us to get further along in what we'll ultimately produce.
Yeah, I've always, it's always kind of a trick, right, between casting a wide net and seeing what you get back and being very focused. I'm just curious, how have you experienced any challenges with finding the right people to engage, and how do you build these focus groups of topic specific folks?
It's very difficult. Sometimes it depends on the target group, right? And that's where services like user testing or others, where they've got these wide panels, that it enables us to filter. If we're looking to target sort of an end user, an employee, or someone who might be a claimant, that's easier. That's why we've built our proprietary panels, because trying to get to an HR buyer or a broker partner, it's much more targeted and it can be more difficult. So by constructing our own panel, we've at least been able to make it easier for us to deploy these types of studies. But if you get very nuanced or you have a very specific target you're looking at, that's where it gets challenging. And there are recruitment services out there that can help sort of close that gap. And then there's always the proprietary route, which will definitely provide benefits down the line. There's a lot of work that goes into it to get it set up, but once it's there, it's gold.
Exactly. So I'm curious, as we're going through and we're doing this research and we're doing these analyses, what has changed in your opinion in insurance specifically, customer expectations over the years, and how have their needs adjusted? Darcy, would you like to kick us off on that one?
Yeah, thank you. So I think primarily the major shift in customer expectations has mapped and tracked closely with the acceleration of technology, and the fact that you have a generation of consumers now that are growing up with this instant access to pretty much everything in the digital world. The shifting demographics of globally have contributed to this as well. You now have most households with dual working spouses, so there's less free time for sort of analog life, for the chores and the simple day-to-day tasks that people are completing. From everything from grocery shopping has gone online, clothes shopping, you see your doctor online, you bank online. It's not surprising at all that there would be this shift towards expecting that your insurance transactions and interactions are also going to move online. And because that's the way people are living their lives now, they're going to demand it of their insurers, insurance agents, et cetera, as well. I think it's also important to note, as we work in a pretty rigid, heavily regulated industry, customers don't care about that. They don't care about what the challenges are in bringing forth the sort of customer service that they come to demand from the rest of the industries that are providing it to them. Those are our challenges that we have to figure out, which is how to navigate through the regulations and possibly push, the regulatory landscape to meet those sort of changing needs of the customer. Very
interesting. Yeah, you're right, because customers really don't realize what's involved behind sharing data, providing explanations of rates or services and so forth. This is interesting. Darcy, anything to add on that one? I'm sorry, Darcy, Ashley.
I think Darcy summed it up pretty well. The only other piece I might add there is the fact that they're engaging on a daily basis, and everything structured around making it more convenient for them. That convenience, that expectation bleeds over, and it's really tough to get someone to understand that there are so many nuances in the build of a policy, for example, right? That to try and, you know, boil something down to the commodity they expect around how to buy toilet paper, it's not the same thing. And so how you structure convenience, or at least get to a closer approximation of what they might experience in a different setting, I think is the key for us as an industry to figure out and move forward. And it's not going to be easy, as Darcy mentioned, but I think that's what we are all trying to figure out and slowly move forward with the information that we're pulling in, and that layering on of design thinking and some of those methodologies that Susan had previously mentioned.
It's a really interesting situation, right? Because like on one hand, customers want we want more self-service, we want more independence. On the flip side of it, we still want support as we're going through these things. And it's kind of interesting as you think about the evolution of the customer journey, that especially in insurance used to always begin with human to human interaction back in the day, right? To where today we're seeing that the human experience really happens more and more during fail points or friction points in the process. So with that, I was wondering if you could touch on, like, what are, from your perspective, things you see that customers want most when it comes to their experiences and interacting with insurance, especially in a digital way? What are some of the key things that we're hearing as key desires, and maybe what are some of the key dislikes that we're hearing as well?
I'll jump in here.
Okay.
Having worked at several insurers and being a purchaser of insurance across many different lines of insurance myself, you know, I think I can speak professionally and personally. I think someone brought up earlier in the chat that customers often have trouble articulating what they want, but they certainly have no trouble articulating what they don't want or what they don't like. And so, you know, from that perspective, to start from that framework, and work towards how we can provide them with a better experience. You know, I think it starts with what are the touch points for when are we interacting with the customers? And in insurance, there are two major touch points, which is one, when you're selling the policy to them, and two, when they're making a claim against the policy. So what about those interactions? It becomes, you know, sticky or troublesome for the customer. You know, at the underwriting stage, at the policy binding purchasing stage, are there too many questions? Are the questions too confusing? You know, is the pricing right? Does the purchaser really understand the kind of coverages that they're purchasing, or even what I don't feel like customers feel like they're getting a good enough experience there. Applications are too long. You hear that all the time, right? On the flip side, at the claims touchstone, which is the second prong of where we really interact with the customers, this is the most crucial in my view, because this is where something has gone wrong. And how do you show up for someone when something has gone wrong? To me, it's, again, simplifying that claims process, responsiveness, being able to have the customers reach you through several different avenues that they're comfortable with. Because we may recognize that some customers, you know, like to, again, interact digitally and do self-service and all of that. Maybe someone's comfortable with an app, but your grandma might not be. So how do we create an experience that's good for all the customers at that stage? And I think most importantly is, how do we make them whole really quickly? How do we get them paid quickly so that they can move on with their lives? Insurance shouldn't be something that people are thinking about on the day-to-day. In my view, it should be sort of embedded and in the background of your life, and something that you know that you can count on when something goes wrong. So, you know, that's how I think customers are viewing what they want most, whether or not they can articulate it. You know, maybe it's sort of akin to like government. You want to just know that it's functioning well. You don't really want to be involved in the details.
Gotcha. Susan, anything you'd like to add on that?
I agree completely with what you just said. You know, it's hard to narrow down. They need this or they want this, because our industry is really complex. So, you know, what's top of mind for me is just really friction-free experiences that are timely, accurate, and understandable. And, you know, that applies across, you know, your digital channels, your in-person communications, you know, the print pieces that are going out, and just trying to make it just a very smooth experience. You know, they're coming to us and engaging with us and trusting in us that we're going to take care of their needs at their most vulnerable time. And so we've just got to be so cognizant of trying to make it as easy as possible for them, that just encompasses a lot of other, you know, elements.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Well, I thank you guys for this discussion. I think this was a great conversation, definitely incredibly insightful. I think that our folks on watching this will get a lot out of it. And definitely as we look at customer centricity or customer awareness, which is another great way of thinking about it, I think that there's quite a lot that we can learn as we move forward and we keep watching this CX transformation, which is quite fascinating as we're becoming more and more digitally native. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.